Good afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's have a look at how the local bourse closed today, Wednesday. Okay, hump day indeed. Local stocks still moving sideways, unable to break past the 7,000 level. Shares today on the downside. The main index inched lower by 0.8% to 6,901. This as overseas investors continue to dump Philippine shares for the second day in a row, with net sales at 730.7 million pesos, but exceeding the decline in the local bourse is RCBC. The lender, of course, got sold off today after that massive surge on Tuesday. That's on the back of that 4.99% stake sale to Sumitomo. Now, in our broadcast this morning, RCBC's Senior Executive Vice President and Head of Strategic Initiatives and Asset Management Group, John Thomas De Vera Sr., said that the deal was 2 years in the making. He says the capital raising was accelerated, of course, by the pandemic, also in anticipation that the economy will open up again in 2022 so that they can be ready for customers who actually need funding or capital come next year. Now, it will also help them in their digital push, both for corporate accounts and the unbanked. RCBC ended a Wednesday in the red, the 22 pesos and 60 centavos a share, down by 7.4%. Now, to another notable mover today, Emperador, the day's best performer, it's up 6.5% to 12 pesos and 80 centavos a share, and it has been on a tear for the past weeks. This month alone, the stock is already up by as much as 31.96%. The liquor maker is now the second best performer year to date after making that surge since this month. It's the second only to a port operator ICTSI. Again, Emperador year to date up 26.73%, valued at 12 pesos and 80 centavos a share. Now, from drinks, let's go to solid food here. Let's touch on Century Pacific Food as it now projects a 20% net income growth from its earlier forecast of just 10 to 15% increase. Now, Chairman Christopher Poe factors the recently passed law cutting corporate income taxes. The goal, according to Poe, is to double its business in the next 5 years through 2025 by growing 10 to 15% annually. Now, they're banking on their plant-based meat product via Unmeat to help push that growth. They say that it could account for 10% of sales in 5 years if their plans succeed, at least in the Middle East and in Europe. Again, you have Century Pacific bucking the sell-up in the index today, gaining by 1.1% to 23 pesos and 40 centavos a share. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Inflation may climb to as much as 4.7% in June. That's according to the Bangko Sentral. The central bank says this is due to higher electricity costs and a slightly weaker peso. If realized, this would be faster than the inflation print for May at 4.5%. Philippine Star reports that inflation averages 4.4% in the first 5 months of the year, reaching government's 2 to 4% annual target. The BSP notes prices of key food items such as rice, meat, and fruits will partially offset the price hikes as supply conditions improve. Now, nearly 6.5 billion pesos of unobligated funds under the Bayanihan 2 expires today. Budget Department spokesperson Assistant Rolando Toledo told Ryan Josinco's Ted Filon that the total unobligated allotment in the Bayanihan 2 is 17 billion pesos, but 10.8 billion pesos of which may still be utilized by receiving agencies until the end of the year, since this was sourced from continuing appropriations under the national budget. Out of the 6.5 billion peso budget expiring, 1.7 billion pesos was supposed to go to the Department of Education for its digital infrastructure and alternative learning modules. 1.3 billion pesos is for the DSWD to cover several COVID-19 response and intervention. The DPWH was to receive a billion pesos as well for the rehabilitation of roads leading to tourism sites. Malacanang, meanwhile, sees no need for a Congress special session to extend the validity of Bayanihan 2, which expires today. Palace spokesperson Harry Roque says the remaining funds will likely be obligated for government's COVID-19 response anyway. With unspent funds from Bayanihan 2 down to close to 6.5 billion pesos, is there reason for the DBM to downplay fears over the unobligated allotments under the measure? Let's get insights from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila President and economist Professor Emmanuel Leyco. Good afternoon, Prof. Leyco. I think, sir, you are on mute. Let's try to unmute first your mic, sir. Okay, just checking if you can hear me now, sir.
Okay.
All right,
I can
let's
hear
check
you
our
now.
audio. Okay,
right.
all good now. So, do you subscribe to the DBM's explanation that some 10 billion pesos from the unobligated allotments worth 17 billion pesos may still be used for the remainder of the year? That brings down funds set to expire to 6.5 billion pesos. So, do you subscribe to that explanation, sir?
Well, they say that the money is already obligated and it's already with the agencies. I think the next question is, are they now able to implement on time? But I believe the funds that are going to expire are still very much needed. And in fact, in addition to the Bayanihan 2, Bayanihan 3 was also being considered. And I think there is more or an additional value that Bayanihan 3 may bring to the recovery in our economy. For example, Bayanihan 3 also includes additional household support or ayuda. And I think in a consumer-driven economy, consumption has been very much stifled during this period, and therefore Bayanihan 3 will still be very, very much needed.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we touch on Bayanihan 3 further, should we take the 6.5 billion peso unused funds lightly? And what are the possible repercussions of this? And what does this indicate as well about the government's COVID response?
Well, the non-utilization of additional funds for Bayanihan 2, I think, will also have a negative impact on the economy. Remember, government spending is a major factor also in our economy, and government spending going to the households or going to other businesses will only help stimulate our economy, and also in terms of the additional activities that we need in order to manage and address COVID-19 in the country. Every single centavo is needed, and therefore I don't believe in putting an expiration date to the funds that have already been committed to address COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. So it's high time to actually omit a timeline from your end when it comes to these passing measures, stimulus measures at that.
Actually, at the minimum, given our performance, and I think we have to give due consideration to the capability of our agencies. Give it at the minimum up to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, question is, should Congress still hold a special session to extend the validity of the unused funds from Bayanihan 2, or should they instead set their sights on Bayanihan 3?
I think they need to do another session and also consider Bayanihan 3. Bayanihan 3 is not exclusive. It is not exactly a separate program. It's a continuation.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope the president realizes that there will be economic implications if Bayanihan 2 is not extended and if Bayanihan 3 is not passed.
Mm-hmm. Now, what should change? Should there be a Bayanihan 3? What improvements should agencies put in place in order for them to at least have a better absorptive capacity?
I think that's why I was asking if the obligated funds have already been implemented, we need to watch that. We need to be able to monitor that. I think the push now after the Bayanihan 2 funds and Bayanihan 3 funds, if ever it comes, they should be able to monitor spending, monitor the implementation, and give it a push. It's not enough that we pass laws to authorize transfer of funds. I think more importantly, we need to be able to implement these programs.
Now, moving on to a different topic here, you have the Philippines once again being gray listed in the FATF. What are the possible implications from this?
Well, you're talking about the gray list. That is not good for the economy because that will slow down our transactions, and it's not good, especially when we want to be able to present the Philippines as as a worthwhile partner in business, and then we are on a gray list. That's not good. So I think for purposes of moving our funds and facilitating our transactions with our business partners more easily, we need to be able to address that. The Philippines should present itself as a worthwhile partner in the international business community.
How does that directly affect businesses here or doing business, at least on an international level? Are we expecting at least a hike, an increase in interest rate or other fees? And what are the additional levels of scrutiny here that we should be preparing for?
I think the cost of transaction will be affected. Even our credit rating could be affected by that. So being on that list means that we can expect that there will be a higher cost of transaction for Philippine businesses and the government itself.
Now, of course, recently you had the government finally making clear the quarantine classification for the entire country, at least until mid-July. Here in NCR Plus, that has been extended. GCQ has been extended until mid-month. As this the right move to make, especially amid the threat of the Delta variant?
Well, it's good that we are continuing to go ECQ, but we have to be watchful of how Delta variant could come in. I understand that we are still very much in effect. Being able to keep it out, but if we lay our guards down, it can come in, and it could lead to a devastating result, just like what's happening to other countries. I believe that's what's happening now in Indonesia, and that might just basically write off whatever we have achieved during these long lockdowns that we've been experiencing. Yes, I am agreeable to a loosening of the lockdowns, but at the same time, I don't think we should let down our guards in terms of watching, monitoring entry of Delta variant to the country.
Okay, and lastly now, Professor Leyco, you have a number of milestones here when it comes, of course, to the government's vaccination efforts. A few days ago, we already reached the 10 million mark when it comes to doses administered. Now you have more vaccines coming in. What can you say about the vaccination base, and where do you see this at least pushing growth for the remainder of the year?
I think it's great that more vaccines are coming in, but not enough. I think we're still far from our goal, and it will only give us positive results if we are able to accelerate vaccination for the country. And again, I would like to reiterate, the government cannot do this all by itself. I think we need the private sector in a much, much more active role, playing in the vaccination and monitoring of COVID-19 in the country. I hope the private sector comes in a much with a much bigger role in this vaccination.
All right, thank you very much for your insights. Again, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila President and economist, Professor Emmanuel Leyco. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for having me back. Thank you.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, June 30, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.